Hey there gamers, welcome back to the Board Game Code channel, and today we have a preview of Escape from Stalingrad Z Reloaded. Hey there gamers, it's Professor Meg here, and welcome back to the Board Game Code channel. Today we have a preview of Escape from Stalingrad Z Reloaded. So the Reloaded, as you may have anticipated, is this game is being redone. So also to note, I do have the deluxe version in front of me, and this video is sponsored by Raybox Games. You can check out the Game Found campaign link down below for everything that they have planned, because I am going to be going over the game, but they have a lot planned for this campaign, so I highly suggest checking it out. Now, as you may have anticipated, Reloaded, it's going to be a new version of this game. So a couple things are changed and upgraded. It's also coming out at a cheaper price point for everyone, so it's a little bit more accessible and things like that. But this is a tried and true game, so you can check it out on BGG. It's already rated. It has a pretty high rating as well as a pretty high complexity, so you can check that out and see other gameplays over on YouTube and the internet and things like that. But there is currently this campaign. You can check out the link down below for everything on GameFound. But with that in mind, this is a prototype copy in front of me. Slight rules, components, and things like that subject to change, perhaps typos and stuff like that. But that being said, as I said, this game is tried and true. It already exists, so this is something that you're able to see a lot of opinions on before you jump into this game. Now, if you're also familiar with the name Raybox Games, you may know of a game that I've already covered on the channel, The Cats of Mont Saint-Michel. So that is about a bunch of cats that are, doing their own thing, and this is going to be Escape from Stalingrad. So this is going to take place in 1943, and you're in Stalingrad when a zombie outbreak happens. So you're already in the midst of World War II, but a zombie outbreak happens on top of that, and now you're trying to escape from the city, because as you can imagine, any city like that is going to be somewhere very, very insane to be when zombies break out, and you want to get as rural as you can and get out to try to escape the outbreak. So this is going to be a campaign game for 1 to 3 players, and we'll get into the exact player count in a moment when I go over the game. But this is going to be a game where you are playing through a campaign arc, making different choices, trying to be the one to escape Stalingrad. So you're going to have different things that you are doing, such as trying to upgrade your character and scavenge for different resources. But this is also happening in December, so you are in the midst of the winter when all of these zombies are coming to attack you, so everyone cooperatively is going to be trying to escape Stalingrad. Now, before we jump into what you see in front of you, I actually wanted to show you how the game is presented. So the base game is going to be in this pamphlet here. I will show you when you flip this around, that's what would be in this exact box here, would be this pamphlet, which I think is really handy and cool to show you. But the other boxes that are inside of this deluxe box are actually for the miniatures. So there is a version of the game where you are able to play with standees instead, but there are miniatures, and that's how they kind of fit inside of this deluxe box. So taking a look at this folder here, normally you would open it up and you would have your rule book to the left that you can see. We have our sheet here for our team control sheet, but normally tucked inside of here you would have your scenario booklet. So everything that you need to play besides the tokens and perhaps the miniatures is going to tuck into here, and your player board is going to tuck into this neat little folder, which honestly I just think is very cool. It works really well. You have your team sheet, you also have your rule book in here, but then once you open that out, you also have a little handy cheat sheet of everything that you might need. So this it makes it very clear and easy for you to be able to play the game. Now, this being a campaign game, you are going to play through different scenarios, and to keep this as spoiler free as possible, this is the second scenario that you would be doing when playing through the tutorial. So this is a tutorial mission, and it's not really revealing too much, but it is showing you the basic layout of what the game is going to look like when you're playing it. Starting with up here, you can see the name of the scenario that you're playing, and then you'll have a bit of flavor text to introduce you to the horrors that you're about to face, and then it will walk you through the setup, such as us putting out these different zombies here and these different items out here, and then it gives you the objective. So the objective for this current scenario, just to give you an idea, is to pick up this knife and then exit at one of these areas. So you're trying to grab the knife and then leave as quickly as possible, because at the beginning of the game, you don't start with any weapons, and they are so necessary and important to be able to, be able to progress throughout this game. So you need to pick up weapons, and while you do need to pick up the knife, there is also an additional Luga over here that you are able to pick up, which would be a gun for you, and very, very important. So there are a couple things that you are able to grab here in the second scenario. And then within the setup, you can see here characters 1. So that's where I wanted to note the player count, is that certain scenarios will have a certain number of characters. So I would say that this game is best at 1 to 2 players based on the characters that are included in the different scenarios, but the current version is for 1 to 3 players. Now after that, you have the zombies that you will be spawning for the game. There are some that you will spawn and populate at the board because they have a Z showing you where to put them, and that's all in the setup part. But the other zombies are going to be placed here in the zombie pool. So you can see that there are 8 beta and 1 armored, meaning that one of these tokens is going to be an orange one, which is going to be the armored zombie. Now these zombies, you will be taking their tokens when they spawn and putting them at the different spawn points, but you won't actually know what type of zombie it is until they are, interacted with a different character. So the characters have to be able to see the zombies, and once they see them, even if they're moving past them, then they're able to note what kind of zombie they are. But so that's a way that you may not know exactly what you are experiencing and why the zombie pool is mixed up the way it is, because in this scenario, you could run into an armored zombie, which is immune to stun. Now, the scenario sheet also gives you a couple helpful things to remember, which are very, nice for them to give you in the scenario booklet, and makes it very easy for you to really only need to play with exactly what's in front of you, plus your handy dandy reference sheet, and that's really all you need to be going throughout the game. Now, you have the things to remember, and then the things that you can find. So these are going to be the different things that you can find when interacting with this area. And then when you're looking at the map, you do have an orthogonal map where you're moving around. Now, zombies are able to move diagonally, so be careful for them, but you also have a round tracker so that you are able to track the different rounds, because as those progress, certain things can trigger depending on the turn of the round, and you are going to, for example, spawn enemies at the spawn 1 point, spawn 2 point, at these different increments, which would come from this pool. Now, another thing to note is that when you kill zombies, you gain experience points, which is really great because you have your different skills that you're going to work toward upgrading. But that being said, once the round track has reset, so once we reach this round and it comes back, you will not be able to gain experience for the zombies that you kill after that. You basically took too long with this particular scenario. You're still able to win it, but you won't gain any additional experience, kind of capping experience for the scenario, just to kind of have you lead toward what you need to do. Now, I just described the scenario setup, and you can see just how accessible this is to pick up and play and set up, and after that, players are going to be cooperatively trying to take out these different zombies. Now, to do so, you're going to go through these different turn orders, and at the beginning of every single round and phase, you're going to have an initiative segment. So during the initiative, you're going to roll a d12. The dice system in this game is always going to be d12s, and you'll roll a d12 for the survivors, but you'll also roll a d12 for the zombies, and they get a -4 penalty. So you'll roll both of those initiatives and then see who would go first. If the survivors have the option, they can choose if they want to go first or second, but if it's the zombies, they always go first. They're not smart, they just go for it. So that is the initiative part, but certain zombies and conditions for the scenarios can change that initiative part. So there are some zombies that let you ignore that, or let them ignore that -4, meaning that the initiative roll is just a d12 versus a d12 every single round. Now, after that, you're going to have the turns for either the survivors or the zombies, and then vice versa. And when you are doing that, you're going to move for everyone. So all of the players are going to go through their different characters. In this example, we only have one character in this scenario, but all of the zombies will move, starting with the one that is closest to the survivors. Now, I'm not going to get into everything that you can do on your turn with your different actions, because the game does grow with you and add rules, and I don't want to add any spoilers or things like that, and I think a basic understanding is going to be really everything that you need. So during your turn, players are going to decide what they're going to move. So the first thing that you're going to do is decide basically how far you're going to be moving, and then depending on that, it's going to give you a certain movement point cost. So you could either choose to stay stationary, you could walk or run, for example, and those are going to give you different movement points, but it's also going to make you better or worse at different things depending on what you're trying to do. Now, another thing that players are able to do on top of those actions is going to be having a special action, but if you choose to do a special action for that turn, that is the only action that you do, and you do not get movement points. So you can choose to interact with certain things. For example, there may be points of interest where you are trying to search, and when you do so, you'd be using your special action to be able to do so, but it would take that character's turn. Now, movement points are going to be extremely important for the different actions that you are choosing to take throughout the game. So whether you are walking, you will get 4 movement points. If you run, you will get 8. If you choose not to move, obviously you get 0, but you'll use these movement points to move around the board, interact with different things, such as trading different weapons with other players or other characters, and being able to do things such as turning your direction, because the way that you're facing in this game can really matter with what you are able to target. Now, attacking does not cost you movement points, but how you move will change the different modifiers that you'll be using. So let's get into what attacking looks like next. Now, when attacking in the game, there are a few modifiers to look at, and players are able to engage in combat, meaning that if you do not yet have a weapon, you are able to do combat needing at least a 10 on a d12 to stun a zombie. But that being said, once we are able to pick up at least one weapon, such as the knife here, you're able to use the weapon to do your attacks. Now, the knife has an asterisk here showing that it's able to be only a one-handed weapon, meaning that if you had 2 weapons with an asterisk, such as the Luger over here, you are able to have both of those and use them. However, the second item in your offhand does have a penalty. But that being said, looking at the knife here, if we were able to pick it up during the scenario and equip it to our character, we would then be able to use it. So the number up here is going to be how many dice you are rolling when using the attack. So if we did have our knife and we were up here with the zombie and engaged with him, we would be able to roll 1 die to be able to attack him. Now, since we are in close hand-to-hand range, we would be using this number up here, which is a 4 and a 7. So the 4 would be to stun the zombie, and the 7 would be to do a damage to him. So we would roll to see, ooh, a 1 is absolutely terrible. So a 1 is actually a great example because you would be able to take a scratch token, which would allow you to re-roll in the future, which, you know, because it was pretty terrible for us. But that being said, if that didn't happen, here we have a 6. So the 6 would be able to stun the zombie but not damage it. So to stun it, we would be able to place a stun token over here, and they won't activate on their next turn. They'll simply remove the stun token, which is great for us. But also when attacking stunned zombies, they have a -3 modifier. So this would be even easier to do, meaning to be able to damage him now, we only need to roll a 4 because it would be 7 minus 3 for him being stunned. Now, this character would take an attack token, meaning that they've already attacked this turn, and this would be removed at the start of their next turn. But that would show they were able to stun this zombie, but not quite damage him yet. Now, all of these beta zombies do have only 1 health, so if you were able to damage them, you would be able to kill them. But as I noted, there is the armored zombie, which has armor, meaning that it would not be able to be stunned. Now, to get a little bit more complicated, let's say we had killed this zombie, we're a few rounds later, and we're able to pick up this Luger. Now, this is a gun which we're going to be able to use, and we'll put this into our ready weapon hand. Now, you do need line of sight in this game, and you also need to be facing the correct area, meaning that this character currently wouldn't be able to shoot this zombie based on how they are facing. But if they were able to be in front of them, I'll show you what combat would look like. Again, the Luger would only be rolling 1 die. However, they would stun on a 6 and damage on a 9. Now, this one is able to be 4 spaces away to be at point blank range. And if you are further, you will just suffer a penalty that it will be even harder to hit this zombie depending on how far back you go. But at the range we are currently at, we are definitely able to attack him. And here we have a 10, so that would have done a damage to him and it would have killed this zombie. Now, again, these zombies also grant you experience points, and here you can see your experience track where you are working toward these skills, which are really cool that you were able to upgrade. So all of this is kind of working together toward you trying to gain the different resources that you need within the maps, and also trying to upgrade your different skills to be able to aid you in being able to escape the game, because all of these different scenarios are going to be very different, having you complete different objectives, but the entire story arc of the game is going to have you going through this flavor of trying to escape with all of your survivors. Now, something that I think is very, very interesting in this game is that if any of your survivors die, they don't just die. You're playing a zombie game. So if they die, they're actually resurrected as a zombie and you have to kill them. And if you don't kill them, they're going to show up scenario after scenario until you do. So it is a bit morbid and pretty cool that these guys are not only going to die, but you're going to have to kill your own friends if you let them die. So the stakes are much, much higher, but it also gives you that pacing of a zombie game that feels very, very scary, because not only are you being overwhelmed by the enemy, but then if you become too overwhelmed, your friends become the enemy. Now, this has just been a brief overview of what the scenarios are going to look like and the pacing of how this game is going to play. So I will show you here, brief spoiler, but there are so many different scenarios that you're going to be able to play through with the different conditions that you'll need to do, and all of them do change the story a bit. Now, you are going to have this flavor text at the beginning of each of the scenarios, and then once you finish, you do have the exit as well, where it's going to be pulling you narratively through the story, but I do think that the amount of story that is in this game is great to set you up for the different scenarios, but isn't too much. It's not overwhelming, and the general story arc is very easy to understand, so you don't have to worry about certain people or names or things like that and not be sure exactly what you're fighting for or what choices you want to make. You're basically presented with very interesting choices of what your playstyle would be and what you might choose to do. For example, this one would be whether you choose to flee or fight, so you kind of just choose what you think your team might do narratively and what they might choose, and then you're going to play through the entire campaign. And because of that, with the different choices that you were making, there is a ton of replayability for this, especially because I think it is so smooth as a solo game. I think setting this up as a solo player, there's not that much demanding of you, but there is so much strategically to go into these different scenarios as you're playing that I think that it will have players wanting to pick this up and play it over again, perhaps with starting with new characters, because there is just so much content to unlock. Now, your characters are going to be really interesting to manage because they are going to have the skills that you're unlocking, but they also have fatigue. So fatigue, as you can imagine when you're going through something like this, it's going to make things worse and worse. So it's going to be harder for you to do certain things as you take on fatigue, but you're also going to be able to collect gear. So you have your weapons that I showed you, but there's also different gear that players are going to be able to pick up, such as an armor jacket that's going to help, or a backpack and things like that. But there are also different items that are staples for all players to kind of find throughout the scenarios, such as med kits and grenades. So there's a whole bunch in this game that players are going to have both a little bit more reliable, like the med kits and things like that, but then a little bit more sporadic, like the gear, where you're going to find a lot of variability in the different characters that you were able to build out. So there's a whole lot to discover, but with that being said, I think that a lot of the rules are they're pretty simple, and the strategy comes in the choices that you're making. So I think it's very accessible, and it also adds rules as you continue on with different scenarios, so it does not throw everything all at you at once, but it is very complex that you may feel that things are a little bit easy in the beginning because you're just running away from zombies, but as soon as you start fighting them and really getting into the teeth of these different scenarios, you can find that it's pretty overwhelming. Now, there is a difficulty level where whether or not you get to replay your different scenarios. So for the hard mode, you are not able to replay at all. If you lose a scenario, you lose the game. There is a mid-range one where you are able to lose up to 6 scenarios, so you can lose it and then you would replay it. So you would completely restart, you can't just move on, but you are able to lose up to 6 scenarios. Now, there's also an easy mode where you are able to replay them if you lose. So if you do have something that you want to have a bit more of a challenge, you can choose your difficulty mode, and then perhaps when you go to replay it again, you can make it even harder for yourself. A couple things that I did not know about the map is you can see here there is some hindering terrain, so that is terrain that's going to make it even harder to move on to, meaning that players are going to need to move around it. There are also walls, and there are also going to be scenarios with doors, so you're going to have doors that you are able to move through, and that's going to also really change the game because zombies are not able to open doors and they will be very affected by that. Now, again, I just wanted to show off this is the standee version, and you're going to have that compared to your miniature version here. So you are going to be able to choose exactly what you want for this game. And as I said, everything just packs up really tightly into this nice little deluxe box. So I think that with everything that they were able to pack into this, it is a huge punch for a solo gamer, especially if you're someone who wants to replay games, and especially if you love either zombies or World War II or both, because this really, really hits the nail on the head with that theme as well. All of the different miniatures and zombies and things like that are dressed to the nines in what you would expect for that time period, and the zombies are a bit scary, so you can definitely look forward to that. And as I said, check out the link down below for everything that Raybox Games has planned. So I'm Professor Meg, thank you all for watching the Board Game Code channel. This has been a preview of Escape from Stalingrad Z Reloaded. I hope you all check it out, and I will see you next time. Bye! And yes, in case you were wondering, my sweatshirt says experiment gone wrong, because I think that's how this started.